Have you ever woken up after a full night of sleep, but still felt like your brain was stuck in a thick fog? You aren't physically tired from running a race, yet the thought of deciding what to eat for dinner feels like trying to solve a complex math problem. This experience is known as mental fatigue. Unlike physical tiredness, which happens in your muscles, mental fatigue happens in your mind when you have used up all your cognitive energy. Think of your brain like a smartphone battery. Every time you make a choice, focus on a screen, or handle a stressful conversation, a few percentage points of that battery drain away. By the end of a long day, you are running on 1%, and your brain starts to struggle to function properly. Why it feels so heavy? When you're mentally drained, the world feels louder and more demanding than it actually is. This happens because the part of your brain responsible for impulse control and logical thinking takes a break. You might find yourself easily irritated, getting upset over tiny things that usually wouldn't bother you. Indecisive, sitting in front of a menu for 10 minutes because you simply cannot pick an option. Distracted, checking your phone every 2 minutes because your brain is too tired to focus on one task. This isn't a sign of laziness. It is a biological signal that your internal resources are low. Your mind is essentially hitting a circuit breaker to prevent total burnout. It is a protective measure, even if it feels frustrating in the moment. Decision fatigue and the drain of daily life. One of the biggest contributors to mental fatigue is a specific phenomenon called decision fatigue. Every single day, your brain makes thousands of tiny choices. Should you hit the snooze button? Which sock should you wear? Which email should you answer first? While these choices seem small, they all draw from the same well of energy. The more choices you make throughout the morning, the harder it becomes for your brain to make good choices in the afternoon. This is why many people find themselves eating junk food at night or impulse buying things online after a long day at work. Your brain's ability to say no or think long-term has been worn down by the sheer volume of tasks it handled earlier. The cycle of brain fog. When mental fatigue sets in deeply, it creates a cycle that can be hard to break. Because you feel drained, you might try to push through by drinking more caffeine or staring at your screen longer. However, this often backfires. The tunnel vision effect. You start focusing on the wrong details. You might spend an hour perfecting the font on a document while the actual content remains unfinished. Reduced empathy. Because your brain is struggling to process its own state, it becomes harder to read the emotions of others. You might feel numb or disconnected from people you care about. Physical echoes. Even though the cause is mental, you might feel it in your body as a tight chest, a headache, or a heavy feeling in your limbs. Protecting your battery. To stop the drain, the most effective method is limiting the number of low-value choices you make. This is why some very successful people wear the same style of clothing every day. They're saving their brain battery for things that actually matter. By automating the small parts of your life, you leave more room for the big parts. Environmental drains and sensory overload. Beyond the choices you make, your physical surroundings play a massive role in how fast your mental battery drains. Your brain is constantly processing information from your environment, even when you aren't paying conscious attention to it. This is called background processing. If you're sitting in a cluttered room with a television humming in the background and a window facing a busy street, your brain is working overtime to filter out that extra noise and visual mess. This constant filtering acts like a background app on a phone that stays open and slowly eats your data and battery life. The problem with always-on culture. In a modern world, we are rarely in a state of true mental rest. Even when we relax, we often do it by scrolling through social media or watching fast-paced videos. This is a trap because micro-inputs, every headline, photo, and notification is a new piece of data your brain has to categorize. The switch cost. Every time your phone pings and you look at it, your brain has to switch its focus. It takes several minutes to get back into a deep state of thought after even a 5-second distraction. Artificial light. Constant exposure to bright screens tricks your brain into thinking it is still daytime, preventing the natural power-down process that should happen in the evening. Restoring the balance. True recovery from this specific fatigue doesn't usually come from doing something else. It comes from doing nothing. Psychology often refers to this as attention restoration theory. This suggests that spending time in environments that don't require directed attention, like a quiet park or a still room, allows the brain to reset. When you are in nature, your eyes wander naturally without searching for a specific target. This lack of searching allows the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that does the heavy lifting, to finally go offline and recharge. The emotional toll and social burnout. When your mental energy is low, your emotions often become the first thing to change. This is because managing your feelings requires a lot of cognitive power. Usually, your brain acts like a filter, helping you stay calm when someone cuts you off in traffic or helping you stay patient when a friend is venting to you. When mental fatigue hits, that filter starts to fail. This leads to what many people call social burnout. You might love your friends and family, but the idea of holding a conversation or even responding to a text message feels like a massive chore. This isn't because you have stopped caring. It's because your brain no longer has the energy to process social cues, like tone of voice or facial expressions. The irritability threshold. Psychology shows that mental fatigue lowers your irritability threshold. Things that you would normally ignore suddenly feel like personal attacks or unbearable annoyances. This happens for a few specific reasons. Loss of perspective. A tired brain struggles to see the big picture. It focuses on the immediate discomfort or the immediate problem, making small issues feel like emergencies. Emotional reactivity. The part of your brain that handles raw emotions, the amygdala, becomes more active when a logical part of your brain is tired. You react with your gut rather than your head. Empathy fatigue. Caring for others requires emotional labor. If your battery is at 5%, you physically cannot feel for someone else the way you usually do. You might feel cold or indifferent, which often leads to guilt. The quiet withdrawal. Because the brain is trying to save what little energy it has left, it often pushes you toward withdrawal. You might find yourself canceling plans, even plans you were looking forward to, because the cost of getting ready and talking feels too high. Seeking mindless activities. Doing things that require zero emotional input, like staring at a wall or rewatching a show you've seen 10 times. Feeling done. A specific sensation where you feel you cannot take in one more piece of information or one more request from another person. Understanding this helps you realize that your bad mood is often just a tired mind. It changes the solution from I need to fix my personality to I need to rest my brain. The difference between mental fatigue and burnout. While they feel similar, there's a big difference between being mentally fatigued and being burnout. If mental fatigue is a battery that has run down to 0% after a long day, burnout is a battery that has lost its ability to hold a charge at all. Mental fatigue is usually temporary. A good weekend of rest, a few early nights, or a break from screens can often bring you back to your normal self. Burnout, however, is a deeper state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. Recognizing the shift. You can tell when simple fatigue is turning into burnout by looking for 3 specific signs. Cynicism and detachment. You start feeling like your work or your relationships don't matter anymore. You might feel numb, or like you were just going through the motions of life without any real connection to them. A sense of inefficacy. This is the feeling that no matter how hard you work, you aren't accomplishing anything. Even when you finish a task, you don't feel a sense of pride. You just feel more tired. Chronic physical symptoms. While mental fatigue causes brain fog, burnout often causes long-term physical issues like frequent colds, stomach problems, or muscle tension that never goes away. Why rest doesn't always work for burnout. If you're just mentally tired, a nap or a day off feels amazing. But if you're burnout, a day off often feels stressful because you spend the whole time worrying about the work you aren't doing. In psychology, we see that burnout usually happens when there is a mismatch between what you are giving and what you're getting back. This could be lack of control, feeling like you have no say in your schedule or your tasks. Lack of reward, working incredibly hard but never receiving a thank you or a feeling of success. Value conflict, doing things that go against what you actually believe is right or important. The path to recovery. To fix mental fatigue, you change your habits, like sleeping more. To fix burnout, you often have to change your boundaries or your environment. It requires looking at why your battery is leaking in the first place and plugging those holes, rather than just trying to recharge it over and over. Micro habits for reclaiming your energy. Since burnout is a deep, long-term state, preventing it requires small, daily actions that protect your brain from reaching that 0% mark. In psychology, these are often called protective behaviors. They don't take much time, but they act like a safety net for your mental health. The goal isn't to do more. It is to stop the leaking of your energy throughout the day. Here are a few simple ways to keep your battery from hitting the red zone. 1. The 5-minute transition gap. Most of us jump straight from one task to the next, from a work meeting to a phone call, or from driving home straight into cooking dinner. This creates attention residue, where your brain is still thinking about the last task while trying to do the new one. The habit: spend 5 minutes between major activities doing absolutely nothing. Don't check your phone. Just sit, breathe, or look out a window. This lets the data from the previous task settle. 2. Batching your decisions. As we discussed with decision fatigue, every choice drains you. You can save massive amounts of energy by making pre-decisions. The habit: choose your clothes, your lunch, and your top 3 must-do tasks the night before. When you wake up, your brain doesn't have to start its engine just to figure out what the day looks like. 3. Digital sunset. Your brain needs a signal that the day is over. Constant notifications keep your brain in a state of high alert, the fight or flight system. The habit: pick a time, perhaps 8 p.m., where your phone goes into a different room or stays on Do Not Disturb. This tells your nervous system it is safe to stop processing new information. 4. High-quality rest versus low-quality rest. Not all rest is created equal. Low-quality rest, scrolling social media, watching stressful news, actually uses energy because your brain is still processing images and emotions. High-quality rest, a walk, a hobby, or listening to music, allows the directed attention part of your brain to truly go offline. 5. Saying no to the small things. Many people burn out because they say yes to 5 small things that they don't actually have time for. Each yes is a new commitment that your brain has to track and remember. The habit: practice the 24-hour rule. If someone asks you for a favor or a new task, tell them, "Let me check my schedule and get back to you tomorrow." This gives your logical brain time to decide if you actually have the energy to spare.